I've been an entrepreneur for the last 4 years. At the age of 23, I've now built 3 businesses, all profiting multi-six figures in their very first year. So here's 4 years of completely honest, genuine advice and mindset traits that I've developed in my first 4 years of entrepreneurship. Number 1 is a crazy drive to succeed. So Tim Ferriss talks about this and he says, is it an itch or is it a burn? Because if it's just an itch that you want to scratch, oh, I think I might want to do it one day, I'm not too sure, don't even start. Like, it has to be a burn. Business is 10 times harder than you will ever think. I think entrepreneurship is really fantasized, but it's always going to be harder than you think, and you're going to have a lot more pressure and responsibility than you could ever imagine. So unless it's a burn and you're willing to go 100,000% in, don't start, because you can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. There's always going to be someone that has the burn when you've got the itch. And if there's someone in the same industry as you that's got a burn and you're just itching it, they're going to completely dominate you out the fucking water. I remember when I started my very first business in fitness, and I had a couple of mates in the area around me and they were like, oh yeah, I think I might do the same. I'm going to see how you get on, and if it looks like it's going to do well, I might get into it. And I just couldn't understand that at all. I was like, I'm all in, I'm going for it. And within the first 6 months, we'd done over 6 figures. And those guys are still in the same place today. It's that 1 foot in, 1 foot out mindset and mentality. You have to be all in. But my point with this is pick an industry and pick a niche that you are so fucking passionate about that no matter what entrepreneurship's going to throw at you on the journey, you will just grind and grind and grind, and you will put in those 20-hour days, all-nighters, whatever it takes, which is going to be thrown at you at some point. You've got to have that burning desire, that crazy drive to succeed, or otherwise someone else is going to completely dominate you. The second trait is horizontal thinking, being able to gain a really good perspective on how a business actually works, because a lot of people just think, oh, I've got an idea, so I can be an entrepreneur, I can make a business. But there are so many elements to business, and you have to be a master at every single element, especially at the start before you've built a team that can be delegating things out and do things at a high standard for you. So you've got to understand how every single element in the business works and be a master at all of them initially. So you've got to have a really good bird's eye view on how it actually happens. So if we think about like a roadmap and how to get somewhere, if you're in the middle of a city, you're in the middle of London, you've got skyscrapers everywhere, and I said, you've got to get to Scotland, you'd be looking around and you'd have no idea how to get there. You don't know the actual pieces of the puzzle to get there. Whereas if we zoom out and we get bird's eye perspective, we go, okay, we need to go there, we need to go there, then that way, then that way, then that way, then that way. You've got to be really good at getting perspective, getting high up, almost like you're on an airplane, and looking down on your business on how the whole funnel is going to work. So you've got to understand, okay, how are you actually going to build this product? How are you going to make it profitable? Once you've got a winning product with a market fit, how can you actually then distribute that? So what are you going to do to actually make people aware of it? How are they going to be then nurtured to then come into a funnel and actually pay you money, hundreds or thousands or millions of pounds, whatever the cost your product is, to then buy it and then be fulfilled and then sustained and retained as a high quality client? Like, you've got to understand how all of that is going to work, and then how are you going to get more clients, and then how are you going to put referrals in? You've got to know every single bit, from building the business, building the product, fulfilling the product, the marketing, the sales, and then be a master at every single element inside of each one of those branches. So you've got to be really good at getting a perspective. And I actually, every single morning, I wake up, I come in my office, I look at my non-negotiables and my plan for the day, and I just redraw out my plan on how the business is working. I just redraw out the bird's eye view, and I have so much clarity. And I just know how I'm going to get exactly where I want to go. And you've got to become a master at horizontal thinking and then understanding where the leaks are in the business. So it's like, okay, this bit's good, this bit's good, this bit's good, but then everything's leaking out the dam here. The flow of the river has stopped. You've got to make sure that water can keep flowing the whole way through. Otherwise, the business won't simply work. So having that head where you can get above it and understand every element of a business is crucial for its success, especially when you want to scale. The third element is first principle thinking, something that Elon Musk is renowned for, when I've studied. And it's about using science. It's about using real hard facts, which I've always been like since I've been a kid. Always questioned everything. Why is something being done a certain way? And it's really important because far too many people, and I've done this myself, will come into an industry and they will just look at what everyone else in the industry is doing and just copy them because they think that's the right way to do it. But first principle thinking means that you're going to boil everything back down to a ground level, to science, and think factually, is that actually the right way to do it? And is that how it should be? So Elon Musk talked about in one of his interviews how all the other car manufacturers can't make electric cars for a lower cost because car batteries cost hundreds and thousands of pounds to make and install in the cars. And Elon Musk was like, okay, but they don't have to be that much because just because everyone else says they're that much, we could make them cheaper because if we get the raw material from there, the raw material from there, the raw material from there, and then we have a manufacturing system which is really efficient and fast, we want to be able to make them for dollars or cents, and he is well on his way with that mission. In my case, there was an area with one of my products and one of my businesses where everybody in the industry had sales calls, and it's the normal thing. Everybody was doing sales calls, and I sat back and I thought, is it actually necessary to do a sales call for this product? And the answer was no. So from that actual business, we actually removed all sales calls because it just weren't necessary. And that only came from first principle thinking. And you've got to be a little bit almost like a rebel in business to not just copy what everybody is doing and use your own head, put your own logic to the test. And those people who do that, in my opinion, are the ones that will change the way the industry goes. The fourth principle is your relationship with pain and stress, because you are going to encounter so much short-term pain when it comes to business. You're going to be given handfuls of stress every single day, down to your actual business product and fulfillment and service itself, all these issues that are going to come up with payment processes crashing, clients having issues potentially, staff having issues or lack of staff. And you have stress coming in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And those who are at the top and those who progress and those who even get off the floor getting started, because obviously I'm so relatively early, 4 years in, you look at some big companies that are 50 years in, 60 years in, 70 years in, those guys that are even further down the line, they just have a huge ability to, one, stay focused on something for a long period of time with that crazy drive to succeed, but two, their tolerance to pain and stress is like remarkable. So if you're someone that gets easily stressed and can't hack it and you go off on a binge eating or you go out and you just lose your head and you punch in walls, you really need to work on that if you're looking to enter the industry of entrepreneurship. In addition to this, we can also think about life pains and life stresses. So a lot of people face adversity in life, and this may be early on, it may be whilst you're running a business or before a business, but your relationship with pain on the whole is huge, because pain that is so bad can either send you down a downhill spiral or it can send you on an uphill spiral. So many of you may have experienced something really traumatic in your life or really upsetting, and effectively you may have a down period and you gain lots of weight, or maybe you lose lots of weight but in a bad way, or you just stop working on the business, or you lose drive and you drink more and you start smoking or vaping, whatever. That happens for a lot of people. Now, the other hand is, if you look at the high performers in the world, they've all faced so much adversity. And a lot of people say to me, like, Tom, I wish I had your motivation for training. I wish I had your motivation to, grind on the business and do all nighters when you need and just not stop working. And I'm almost like, you don't really, if you knew what was fueling some of the late nights and some of the training sessions when you look like you're going to kill yourself in a set. And that's all down to your relationship with pain. So for me, just one of the painful experiences I had in my life where I remember, I think I was about 16 and I was coming home I was swimming at a reservoir after college, and I get back and my family are there in the garden all crying. And I knew something was wrong, and it turned out that my mum had been diagnosed with cancer and still struggles with it and still has to get checked up on it to this day, 6-7 years later or whatever it is. So that for me was a really painful thing and something I didn't talk about for years and years and years, but fueled me massively for my own physique, for my own health, and to become more valuable, to become the most valuable I can be in all areas, with my personal development, with my finance, in just any way I can be a better version of me to be better for my family, to be better for her, to be better for my dad, for my sister, and show up in all areas was critical. So that fuels me when I'm training. It fuels me when I'm working. Your relationship with pain is going to be crucial. So think about something. If you've gone through some form of adversity, some form of pain, which I'm sure everybody has to some extent, try and take what you can from that and allow it to fuel you, because that is what will truly allow you to succeed more than anything. All the high performers in the world, if you listen to the backstory, they have gone through something that has been really painful and has fueled them so hard to grow at a faster pace. The next trait is just understanding that nobody owes you anything at all. So I was actually having a conversation. It was like the second day for a CEO client that we'd onboarded. So we help people obviously with their physique, their mindset, but then also with their business consultancy for their online business, whether they're a coach or a course creator, whatever. And this guy, he'd never been in business before. And it was his second day, and it was his second day of posting content. And he messaged me and was like, I've had no inquiries yet. No one's interested, Tom. And I was like, yeah, bro, they're not gonna be, mate. It's day 2 of posting content. You have to be so valuable and have given out so much free stuff, so much free content. And even then, when you've done that for year after year after year, for example, in this case with a coach, even then they still owe you nothing. Like to this day, I genuinely believe no one who's watching my content, nobody owes me nothing at all. I owe you guys everything, but I still have to expect nothing back. And only when you expect nothing back is anybody even maybe gonna take something and maybe want to work with you in some way, whether for me that was on the physique stuff or the mindset stuff or the business consultancy. So just understanding that nobody owes you anything, and regardless, you're gonna show up every day, you're gonna post your content, you're gonna build free resources, you're gonna do everything required to just be so valuable in your industry and have an impact, create a movement, and do it for the greater good of people. Even then, you've got to expect nothing. And having that mindset is so powerful. One of the next mindset traits is about self-awareness, and it's about understanding the laws of human nature and specifically cognitive biases. So how the human brain is programmed to think. Now, I'm going to talk about 6 biases in particular. There is the confirmation bias, the anchoring bias, the loss aversion bias, sunk cost fallacy bias, you may have heard of that, framing bias, bandwagon bias, and there are many more. I think there's another 6. But these 6, for me, have been really big that you must overcome, especially as an entrepreneur. And it's all about understanding why your brain makes the decisions it makes. So, for example, you've probably all experienced this, the sunk cost fallacy bias. And this is where, let's say you've been in a relationship and you've been putting in all these hours. You may have been with this girl for 3 years, and you're like, I just can't break up now. Like I've put in 3 years, and it's the lack of ability to like leave something based on what's been done in the past. When all that matters is today and forwards. But the human brain is designed to protect yourself by holding on to time or money or whatever it is that we've already invested. The bandwagon bias is almost like I was talking about earlier with first principle thinking. It's just looking at what everybody else does, and because everybody else does it, we think that must be the right thing to do. Anchoring bias, again, is because of the first thing we ever found out. So for example, I remember when I was on a call with a CEO client again, and he was telling me how for his fitness coaching, he was delivering a very good service, and he was charging, I believe, £125 a month for a very in-depth, highly results-focused service. And he just believed that that's all he could ever charge, because the first guy he ever got told to, the first guy he ever worked with as a consultant said, look, that is the price it needs to be. It's £125 a month. And because of that, he had an anchoring bias. And that anchoring bias meant that he held on to that and believed that that is the only way he could get a client. He could only get a customer. And then straight away, I had to do some mindset work with him and get that out. And then days after, we elevated his price for new clients coming in. He signed up 4 clients, and within 4 weeks, we had 2.5 his business just by getting rid of that single anchoring bias that was holding him back. So understanding what these biases are and how you can basically get out of your own head, look back in and look at the correct way to go about things is absolutely massive. The next thing is just understanding that you don't know what you don't know. And every single day, I would advise every single one of you to read, to study, to work with a coach, to work with a mentor or a consultant, or watch courses, or whatever it may be. Because every single day you go about the world and you think you are an expert in what you do, you are literally stalling. And when you're stalling, you're going backwards. So I make sure that every single day I wake up and I read. And I'll also literally devote 1 hour a day on top to actual education, whether I'm working with a consultant or watching a course on something specific that I want to get good at. Now, at the start, you want to work with people who can just help you with the whole business. Consultants that will help you with the whole business across the board, or a course which is going to help you across the board, or read a book which is just good for mindset or just entrepreneurialism. And then as you develop and as you start building and you start getting to a point where you're scaling businesses, you then want to look at specific areas and then just study those areas. But at the start, you want to be very widespread with your study, because you will find something new every day. And it's like the analogy, if you were digging in your garden, you had a shovel, and someone said, look, down there's $100. And you're there digging with your shovel, right, into the soil. And there's a fence there. But over the fence, there was a digger and there was a mine with $10 million. But if you did not know that that digger was there and there was a mine with $10 million, you have just lost $9.999 million just by not knowing that it was there. So always investing in your education, working with people who have already done what you want to achieve is the fastest way to get ahead. I've done this from the very start. My first day in business, I invested literally my last penny into a business coach, and always done that. I always now invest a certain percentage of my income. It was 100% at the start, but now it's a smaller percentage, but still a lot more money than I used to invest into my education. And I buy 3 new books every single week, because knowledge is power as long as you actually apply it. The final trait I want to talk about is productivity, because a lot of people think about hours invested. And now, yes, there are going to be times where you've got to put in those 12-hour days, 16-hour days, 20-hour days, 7 days a week. There are going to be days like that. But once you started getting into it, what you then really want to focus on is one word that I would define as leverage. And leverage is all about understanding that, yes, at the start, volume, hustle is key. But then once you get to a point where you would almost experience diminishing returns, it's really important that once you start experiencing that you try and keep pushing volume, you actually look at, okay, now I've done X volume. So for example, let me put this into context. Let's say you are posting content and you're posting 3 pieces of content every day, and you're going to go to 4 pieces of content a day across platforms and 5 pieces of content across platforms. You're not just going to keep going until you get to 100 pieces of content a day. Maybe when you get to 5 pieces of content a day, you think, okay, but now if instead of adding 1 new piece of content that gets me another 10% gain, what about if on those 5%, I just learned how to make better content and I put more effort into it? And that's going to give you more leverage. It's no different to when you're building a physique. I talk about this with physique clients all the time. You don't need more hours in the gym. You don't need more time to prepare meals. You just need to hit your calories and macros that are actually right for you. You just need to train the right training plan with the right intensity, with the right tempo, with the right execution. Because if you turn up to the gym for 3 hours and train like a bag of spanners, you're going to get nowhere. But you could turn up and do 20 minutes, six days a week, for example, literally just 20 minutes, and look like an absolute savage and machine. So leverage is the thing you're looking for. Focus on productivity. Read books on focus on productivity, and just master how you can focus on one thing and get the most out of every task. So if you've got 1 hour to do something, how could you get the most out of that hour, and how could you leverage it the most? Lads, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please make sure you like, subscribe. If there's anything else that you think should be added on that list, let me know in the comments below. Let me know your experiences, and I will see you in the next video.